I got all the
Hello,
lights I
first
can.
round fantasy fans. What is up? We are here to bring you some great content. I am your host, Jacob Bartley, not your normal host. Gabe had a last minute emergency, so we hope everything's okay with him, but we're going to go ahead and take care of it today. We have Joseph Morsauce in the house and the evil twin brother, Justin Morsauce, in the
Yeah,
house. What's going on, guys?
Yo, what's going on?
everything's
Excited for
good.
football.
Ready to
Welcome
talk some
back,
football.
Justin.
Yeah,
I
thank
know,
you.
right? So by the time people are watching it, we're recording this on Wednesday. It's Thursday if you're watching this, and football is later today. I get off work at 5:15, and the game starts at 5:20. I'm going to be listening to it on the radio on my way home. I'm going to be pumped. I have Deshaun Watson in a dynasty league. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, buddy. It's going to be exciting, man. Lots of fun matchups for tomorrow.
For sure. So let's, just for fun, let's all make one prediction for tomorrow's game. Like, it could be about a player or a situation, a fantasy related situation. So let's start with you, Joe. What is your big prediction for tomorrow's game, fantasy wise?
I want to say that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to bust 20 points tomorrow, and I think he gets a touchdown, and they get the rookie in the end zone week one. I think he ends up with like 5+ catches. He does some groundwork, and he takes the lion's share of that backfield right out the gate.
For sure. What about you, Justin?
Bold prediction right now. I'm going to go with the other side, DJ. He's going to bounce back. PPR is going to be in his favor, and I think he's going to see the end zone too. I think with Cooks going out, getting injured a little bit, he's going to take a little bit more of the share, so it's going to be a nice game for him.
Yeah, I hope so. All right.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, my big prediction is that Deshaun Watson is going to prove the haters wrong, and whether Brandon plays or not, whether Will Fuller plays the whole game, no matter who he's throwing to, he's going to go off for over 30 fantasy points and just kill it and prove the haters wrong who are saying, oh, he's no longer in that top 3 discussion. I think he's going to do it.
Wow.
All right, so today we are getting to our rankings. Now, of course, there's all the legit websites, legit fantasy outlets that do rankings, and we're a new channel and we're trying to get established. So we did our rankings, and for now it's just mine, Joe's, and Gabe's rankings. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go over a consensus list that we did. So all 3 of us submitted rankings, and then we put them together and created a consensus for quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. We're going to look at our top 10 consensus for each of those. And then we're kind of going to just discuss the list in general, look at some huge differences in our lists, kind of just give each other crap for making some bold predictions in our rankings. So let's get to it. I think, what do you guys think's the sexiest position to start with? Should we go quarterback or running back?
I think we start quarterback kind of like how most lists do and work our way down.
I was going to say we should start quarterback. So let's get to it. So like I said, we're not going to go over all 3 of our lists in depth, but I think to get a good idea about it, we can just look at these consensus rankings. So these are our top 10 quarterbacks. We have, and then Joe, I'll have you explain how this was put together after I reveal the list. So we have Patrick Mahomes at number 1. We have Lamar Jackson at number 2. We have Russell Wilson at number 3. We have Dak Prescott at number 4. We have Kyler Murray at number 5. Deshaun Watson at number 6. Josh Allen at number 7. Matt Ryan at number 8, Tom Brady at number 9, and Drew Brees at number 10. So I noticed a trend. The first 7 running backs all have rushing capabilities. So I'm sure that played a lot into those rankings. But Joe, how did we end up with this list?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, as we all said, there's a consensus, right? But it's only 3 of us. So Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, when I added up, kind of the rankings, they both finished with a 1.6. But Gabe had Lamar Jackson as number 1, and you and I had Patrick Mahomes as number 1.
Nice.
So he ended up making the top on the list. And kind of same thing for Dak Prescott and Kyler Murray. Because you and I both had Dak Prescott ahead of Kyler Murray, even though Gabe had Kyler Murray ahead, we put Dak as number 4 and Kyler as number 5.
Okay. And Justin, does this look crazy to you? Does anything stand out in that top 10?
I mean, you could debate for 3 to 6 because I can see, like you said, you guys have Deshaun in the mid late, and I can see him finishing 3rd, like you said, ahead of Wilson. But when you get to Ryan, Brady, Breeze, Rodgers, Stafford, Roethlisberger coming back, I could throw any of them in there too. But it's a solid list. This one I can agree with for the most part.
Yeah, so the most difficult thing for me on this list was deciding between Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, to be honest, because the rushing upside of Lamar Jackson is like no other. And so we're basically saying, let's say he even goes for 700 yards, which is a lot, but that compared to over 1,000, what do you have, 1,200?
Yeah.
700 would be a huge difference, but that would be him regressing right back to like what's expected from him maybe. But even if he does that, we're saying Patrick Mahomes has to do enough to pass that. So, Joe, what made you put Patrick Mahomes over him?
I mean, I think it was a couple things. Number one, that NFL list that came out, that went a lot into my rankings because Lamar Jackson was number one.
I can't believe that.
Patrick Mahomes is coming off a Super Bowl. He's the $500 million man.
Yeah.
I think he's out to prove a lot more. And last year he didn't have Tyreek Hill for the first 4 games, and he didn't have a legit running back like Edwards-Helaire. So I think those two things, plus Lamar Jackson, like you said, kind of not necessarily regressing, but I think the Ravens are going to try to do something a little bit different to keep him healthy. So I think between those two things, Patrick Mahomes took the top spot for me.
Yeah, I just, I honestly, at real NFL quarterback, I think Patrick Mahomes is number one, but I think Russell Wilson is number 2, to be honest. And I might even say Russell Wilson is number 1 because he carries a whole entire team on his shoulders. So for me, I think each year Lamar Jackson's going to get better as a passer, so he's going to run less each year. I think he runs because they tell him, okay, if you don't have a pass you're comfortable with, just run because he can do it. And for me, I just think they're going to light it up. Like they're just going to run through teams. I don't know what their best year was 2 years ago, right? Offensively, if you just put up all the numbers, the yards they put up in points per game, I think they're going to surpass that. So
wow, that's bold.
Bro, like you said, he had Kareem Hunt, right? So that's, I guess that's a fair point that he has a running back. But I just think, they're only more comfortable with each other now. All the other offenses than the running back. And I heard, and this is what actually, as you know, Joe, I wasn't too high on CEH coming into the year, but then I slowly moved my way up, and I wasn't aware of this. I was told that they asked Patrick Mahomes, who do you want? And he said, I want Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
No way. I didn't know that.
So when I heard that, I was like, oh my goodness, he's going to ball the F out for the next 10 years. So I inevitably went higher on him. But yeah, I just believe in Patrick Mahomes, and he beat our Niners in the Super Bowl. So what can I do? But Justin, if you were ranking this, and not that we didn't include Justin, he was our last minute replacement for Gabe, so he wasn't involved in the rankings. But if you were ranking this, what would be your top 3? And why would you choose Mahomes or Watts or Jackson over one another?
So if I had to go my top 3, I have to go from a fantasy. I'm not talking about real life. Fantasy, I'm going Lamar. He has less weapons, so more of the burden's on his back. And like you said, he uses his legs. He accounts for the most touchdown share, I think, of any player, let alone in the quarterback range. And Mahomes, you have Hill coming back for a full season. Hopefully, he's going to take some of that off of him. Not to say he's not going to – they're both 1A, 1B, but I'm going Lamar slightly on this. As far as my third, I kind of am going to throw a name neither of you said, and that's Dak. That offense is loaded, and if they get cooking, that guy can do it all just the same. So I love Wilson, I love Murray, Deshaun, but Dak is my clear-cut number 3 for this year.
Yeah, and for the record, Dak was my number 3 as well, but it just didn't shake out like that in the consensus.
Yeah, for sure. And I had Russell Wilson as number 3, just like I said, and I have Dak at 4. So I'm a believer in Russell Wilson, man. It wouldn't shock me if Russell Wilson finishes as number 1. Like that's a possibility. So I love that guy. Joe, go ahead.
Just to mention one thing on that, I think if Russell Wilson was in the Chiefs offense, he could finish number 1.
Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah. So it's not a knock on him. The fact that he's in one of the most run-heavy offenses and still manages to be a top 5 quarterback is amazing. It just shows how efficient he is.
Absolutely.
Good. True.
Is there anything that major that stood out in our quarterback rankings? Any huge differences or any shocks to you?
Well, just kind of including Gabe in this, I had Matt Ryan at number 6. Gabe had him at 11, and you had him at number 8. He finished in our consensus as number 8, so you were, closer in line with where you had him. I think he's gonna, Ridley, Hayden Hurst, Todd Gurley, Julio. It's a dynamic offense, and I think the Falcons are going to be a better team this year. I have him finishing up a little bit higher. I know that wasn't too crazy from where you had him. Gabe was kind of the outlier here.
Yeah, for sure. I don't see any huge, shocking things in our quarterback rankings unless there's something I'm missing. And, I think that's a testament to like how close quarterbacks are in rankings in general. Like after those top guys, it's pretty close amongst the rest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, all have the top guys in the top. So
it's kind of who you believe in, who you want. Do you want Wentz, or do you want Ben Roethlisberger, or do you want Breeze? Kind of, I can see an argument, kind of Justin said, about all of those guys.
I got one major flaw that I see with all 3 of your list, and I know Joey's gonna like this because where he comes from, but no lie, you guys have Jimmy G way too low. This guy is a stud of quarterback. I do not see him landing in the. I do not see him landing. What do you guys have him at consensus 21? I honestly top 12. I can see it. That guy is a stud. They get more of offensive continuity. Debo's coming back healthy. I like Jimmy G. I don't like the Niners, but I like Jimmy G, and he's a stud. So I can see him beating out an older Roethlisberger, an older Stafford, even older Rodgers if he can't get things clicking. He's the young gun.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, that's
now the host of the podcast. The show is yours, man. Take it.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm glad to hear that. Trust me, I'm so happy to hear that. But
from a non-Niners fan, by the way, guys.
Yeah,
no, not a Niners fan.
Here's the thing: Gabe didn't even rank him. I don't think.
I don't know.
He had him, but he had him at 23.
Okay. Oh, he does. And Joe and I have him at 20 each. And I look. Thing is, like, I agree with you in his talent, Justin. But like Joe said, imagine if Jimmy G was on the Chiefs, right? He would be at the top 5 quarterback, right?
Yeah.
It's the offense that he plays, and it's the volume. We talk about volume with running backs, right? Jimmy G, I think he has one of the lower like passing attempts in the league.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing. I don't think he's incapable. Trust me, I watch every game, and he makes some very clutch plays when he needs to, but they run so much, and they use 3 or 4 guys in the running game. That's the only reason. Like, it's not the talent.
Yeah. I mean, I'll counter that by saying he threw, I'm looking at it right now, 476 attempts last year. They have the 1A, 1B tight end in Kittle, another year of deep. Like, you could just look at the draft reflections. Mostert's going higher than any other running back did last year for them. Debo's going higher than any other wide receiver.
Yeah.
And you guys drafted that one rookie, right? The wide receiver.
Yeah.
And all I hear is good things about that man. So who's to say that he can't come out gunslinging? Why did they have to be a run-first team? They have weapons. It's not like they're one-dimensional. That's true. If you want to call that a bold prediction, I'm saying top 12 possibly in that range.
I think Justin makes a good point in that I do think that the Niners are going to throw more this year.
Yeah,
I think that was a really weak spot for us as far as the actual football team last year. In my rankings, to my defense on why I put him as 20, it was hard. Putting him behind guys like Daniel Jones, Joe Burrow, Newton, Baker Mayfield. I think for that, it had more to do with that. I think the Niners are going to rely on the defense in the run game. Like you said, we're constantly going to be ahead of other teams. So we're not going to need to gunsling it. Whereas a team like Matthew Stafford on the Lions or Ben Roethlisberger or Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, I don't expect those teams to be as good. And so I think a lot of those quarterbacks are going to get a lot of garbage time, touchdowns and bombs, and that Jimmy G is just not going to see. When we need him the most, though, as the season fades to week 14, 13, 12, I think he will kind of emerge as a very viable fantasy option.
And I do think, because he was coming off his injury last year, I
Yeah.
think that played a lot of into it. They were like, look, just play it safe. We're going to run a lot, stay in the pocket, don't get crazy. I think he's going to have a lot more freedom this year. So, Justin,
Definitely.
I think you're onto something, man. I do.
Yeah.
I hope not, but I hope.
Good call out.
Oh, man, I need a Jimmy G poster, man. I'm gonna take one of these down. I'm gonna get a Jimmy G one. It's gonna be dope.
Yeah, you changed your name in the fantasy league. What did you change it to?
In which one? Which league?
It was a Jimmy reference. I don't. Oh, maybe that was Travis. Sorry, that was Travis. He did it. He did the Jimmy catchphrase. I don't remember what it was off the top of my head.
I wish I had a clever Jimmy. I only have Jimmy in one league, and that's a 2-quarterback league. So
yeah,
I should look. I won the championship last year, so I can't name. I'm not going to change my team name until I lose.
Yeah,
so
you put it the feels great, baby.
Feels great, baby.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to running backs. Definitely the most important position in fantasy football. And this is where we might have some huge disparities in our rankings. So I'm going to go ahead and read off our top 10. So we have Christian McCaffrey, Ezekiel Elliott, Saquon Barkley, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, Josh Jacobs, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Joe Mixon. Mm-hmm. Wow. Honestly, I'm seeing this consensus for the first time, and I'm like, I don't know if this consensus reflects how any of us have been drafting this year. But I almost like I was talking to you earlier, Joe, about Josh Jacobs and telling you that I believe he's a top 10 running back. Mm-hmm. And if it depends on the type of league, but like if I had the number 8 pick and all the top running backs were gone, or if I had the number 9 pick and Michael Thomas was just taken, I might take Josh Jacobs depending on, like, I feel better about Josh Jacobs than Nick Chubb this year because Josh Jacobs has nobody else taking touches away from him. So I'm actually cool with this number 8 spot. And, I know general consensus overall in fantasy is that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a lot higher than this. Mm-hmm. I'm shocked to see that. Gabe must have had him pretty low on here. But yeah, so Joe, same way you kind of combined our lists.
Yeah.
Consensus. Justin, let me ask you, what's the craziest thing in this top 10 to you?
This top 10 is pretty solid. I would say it's hard because Kamara's coming off not so hot year. How are you going to bump him above Henry, who just monstered it last year? Easy and Saquon as your 2-3. We all know CMC's top dog no matter what. I would say if you disrespected anybody, it's probably Aaron Jones, but I can make an argument to leave him out. But I think Joe Mixon ahead of Aaron Jones is the craziest thing of that top 10.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So some people might say, I don't think this is crazy, but it's like, it goes against what the general consensus is out there in the whole entire fantasy world, is that we have Ezekiel Elliott above Saquon Barkley. Part of that is because Gabe has Zeke ranked above CMC. And Gabe, if you're listening, let's do another draft. I'm going to start another league. I'm going to automatically give you the number 1 pick, and I want you I want to see if you take Ezekiel Elliott over CMC. I'm doing it. But no, I personally look, it's hard. Like Saquon, Zeke, you can't go wrong. But for me, Zeke is on the better team, the better offense, the better offensive line.
Less injuries.
4 more points, less injuries, better quarterback. All of those things lead to me putting Zeke over Saquon. If you switch teams, I put Saquon over Zeke, and maybe Saquon challenging CMC if he's on the Cowboys, So for me, I don't think Zeke's that far off talent-wise from Saquon, but it's the team and the situation for me.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing with Zeke is you kind of know what you're going to get. We always talk about, and Gabe loves to mention it, is that guys don't really repeat number 1. I think CMC's on a completely another level, and I think Todd Gurley would have repeated as number 1 had he not got injured. But aside that point, it seems like Ezekiel Elliott is top 5 every year.
Yeah.
Right? And we just kind of know what you're going to get with him. He's a top 5 back. You draft him, you're super solid, you're super safe. Whereas Saquon Barkley, we saw what he did 2 years ago as the number 1. But then last year he gets injured, kind of regresses even in that offense completely. And I don't even remember where he finished, but it definitely wasn't top 5.
Yeah, I think it was top 12. I think he was the 12th, but still he missed a lot of games though.
He did, and and that's why listen, on our list, every single one of us had him at number 3. Yeah. And I think that's super fair rankings. And I don't think that's just kind of reflecting that. To me, I'm going to take that really safe pick of guy that I've seen do it for 3 or 4 or 5 years now, where Saquon, I've seen 2 years, I've seen one really good year, one not as good year, and I'm just going to take the safe bet as number 2.
Yeah, and there's the injury concerns too. I talked about the team differences in the situation. The injuries play a lot into it. Do you guys know Ezekiel Elliott has never missed a game due to injury? Never. He's only missed games due to suspension. Never injured. That's crazy for a workhorse who's playing almost every down and what is he getting, like around 300 carries a year? It's crazy. So, and to me, he's the most durable. Like running back.
Definitely. And one of the tough things, so my buddy, he's doing a last-minute draft tonight, Travis, who's in our league, and he texts me, he says, I have the number 4 overall pick. Who do I take? And to me, so it's like number 1, I have CMC. Number 2 and 3, I can flip-flop between Zeke and Saquon. I think number 4 through 7 with that Dalvin Kamara, for me, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Derrick Henry, it's so tough.
It is.
Like, I can make an argument for any single one of those guys, and that's what I kind of told him is, look, I don't think you can go wrong. I think, Derrick Henry's coming off a monster year. Kamara, even on a down year, was still really good. Dalvin Cook, as long as he stays healthy, I think is probably the best one, but we don't know about his health. And CEH is the most unknown, but also the hottest pick. So which one do you take? I don't know. I can make an argument for every single one of those guys. And 4 through 7 for my ranking was probably the toughest part of this ranking.
I agree with you. And I think another shocker on our consensus is how high we have Austin Eckler. I don't know if that's the rest of the fantasy world is vibing with that. But the thing is, I have Austin Eckler 6th on my list overall. Joe has him at 8. And then let me see here.
Gabe has him at 11.
I'm surprised because I've heard Gabe say some crazy things about him. So for me, it's before Melvin Gordon came back, he was the number 2 running back in fantasy football.
Yeah.
Why is that going away? If people might say, oh, Phillip Rivers is gone, I think Tyrod being there might be better for him.
I agree.
So, because I think Tyrod might scramble a lot and then just toss it off to Eckler. So I'm not saying he's going to finish number 2 overall, obviously not. But have you guys seen Austin Eckler like working out in the gym? This guy is a beast.
I had to send Justin a picture.
I didn't believe it.
He's just a cool dude as well, and I'm a big fan.
Let me ask you this, Jacob, because that brings me to what I wanted to ask you, and you are the only one that put Eckler above Dalvin Cook. And I see what you're saying. He was the RB2. Let me ask you, in PPR, you take Eckler over Cook?
Yeah. Right now, today, yeah.
How about standard? Do you take Cook over Eckler?
I take Cook for Eckler probably drops to like the 3rd round in standard, or lower.
Okay, that's fair.
Eckler in the standard is.
Here's he's like RB3 or something.
At best.
And RB3, not RB3. So I was looking at my list, and honestly, it's the contract concerns. We don't know if Dalvin Cook's not playing week 1, just holding out. It's possible. And for me, if it wasn't for that, I would have Dalvin Cook above Kamara. I would have Dalvin Cook for me right after Derrick Henry. And Joe knows I'm a Derrick Henry truther, so I have Derrick Henry super high at number 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's PPR, like we talk about PPR leagues, and that's what we play in. But if you look at his stats from last year, it doesn't matter if it's PPR. If you can do that, you don't need to get calls. Like it's just he finished number 2, I believe overall, if I'm not mistaken.
He was up there.
Yeah, and that's crazy. Without he had like less than 20 catches, or maybe only 20 catches.
Yeah. So I think with Eckler, I would have actually had him probably for me, I like that number 6 spot. My biggest concern is I don't know what that team is going to do. And I don't know how much they want to lean on him. How much do they like Joshua Kelly? It's kind of a wait and see approach with him. I have him in a league, and I love to have him with Dalvin Cook, actually, both of them. And I went running back, and I love to have both those guys together. But I'm taking a wait and see approach with him, where I think he's got a ceiling where he can finish number 3, number 4 even. But he also has kind of a lower floor if things don't pan out and they don't throw it to him as much. Because I think he had, 90 receptions last year, only behind CMC. So if Joshua Kelly's out on the field and taking snaps away from him, and if Jackson is, because word out of their camp is that's a 3-headed monster. And I'm wondering if last year they relied on Eckler a lot, because I think, number one, they wanted to make the playoffs. And number two, they knew Melvin was going to come back. It was when. So it was like, hey, we're going to ride Eckler out hard for the first 6 weeks because Melvin's coming as kind of our, reinforcements. Where this year it's like, hey, these are our 3 guys. Here's who we have. Let's get all of them involved from the start. So I'm taking a wait and see approach.
I heard, I don't know if he still is, but I heard Justin Jackson's a little banged up. So somebody is going to have the Melvin Gordon role at the second half of last year. And I like Joshua Kelly a lot. And if I draft Eckler, I'm grabbing Kelly as soon as I can, like at a reasonable, and I love Kelly in Dynasty or something like that.
He's a bit bigger of a guy too, right? He's a pretty chonky dude.
Yeah, he is. Justin, real quick. So where would you have Austin Eckler ranked?
Speaking on PPR, I have him in my top 10, hovering from 8 to 10. The thing is, I can draft Jacobs and pass on Eckler, feel okay about it. I'm going to take Eckler over somebody like Mixon, and then but CH I would take over Eckler just because you got to go with that boom potential. But he's the running backs are pretty top heavy. Like you have those 1, 2, and 3, and then like you guys said 4 to 7. You can mix and match them, but I take Eckler out of those after those guys for sure.
Yeah, and then after like 14 or so, it just drops.
Well, that's kind of more to that point too, is after 4 through 7, where that was so tight, I had 8 through 12 or 13, where it was like, dude, Mixon at 13, which I know was a lot. Gabe had him at 7, you had him at 9, I have him at 13. That's I'm kind of more in line with Justin on this, where I had Miles Sanders, Aaron Jones ahead of Mixon. But it was tough to rank any of those guys, and I could see the argument for any of them.
I think the biggest mystery of this year falls with those tried and true vets that we've seen ball out but had some awkward years. Like look who's fallen to the late teens or early 20s: David Johnson, Le'Veon, Todd Gurley, Mark Ingram, Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon can definitely be a workhorse of a back. Who knows if he just outshines and comes back and has a stellar year. Lindsey doesn't get any run. This guy turns into a monster, 16 to 20 runs a game. But it's fishy down there. And you like to take the hot commodities with the Mixins and the Chubbs, but if they don't get the volume, what are they going to do with it,
Yeah. So, Joe, were there any huge differences in our rankings or anything crazy that stood out?
So the big one, I think, and it wasn't huge, but it was James Conner, to where you had him at 14, Gabe had him at 15, and I had him down at around 20.
Okay.
So it wasn't huge, but I think
at that point it matters. It's that's a big difference because we're saying those top, I guess 12 guys you say, but like maybe even those top 15 guys. You feel really good about, and then after that it gets a little shaky. So you're saying he's in the shaky territory, and the thing is, the only thing that worries me is injuries.
Yeah,
that's the only thing that worries me. If this offense is cooking and he's healthy, I think he's an RB1.
Yeah, well, we've talked a lot about this back and forth, you and I specifically, and good news came out on your front, which was that Mike Tomlin. Did you see what he said?
Yeah, that he's the workhorse. But here's the thing. I already knew that, though.
Well,
I mean, I already felt that, I should say.
yeah.
He's always going to be the workhorse. It's just, can he stay and play the games to be that workhorse?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Well,
I mean,
the
there's
tough
no
thing
doubt.
is, I've been hearing Benny Snell looks amazing all camp. They go out and they draft Anthony McFarland, right? They still have tight end turned running back. I can never remember his name. Who's the other guy?
I know who you're talking about. Yeah, Jalen Samuel. Yeah,
Samuel.
Dude, remember when he was a tight end that one year, and then I got him in one of the leagues, and I was playing him at tight end. It was crazy.
Hell yeah! So all right. So first of all, most teams kind of have a 3 running backs. If they roster a 4th one, they're usually there for special teams type purposes. Like I think the Patriots use Rex Burkhead as a special teamer, and then they may have 3 other running backs. Not a lot of teams go with 4 running backs that they're talking about, hey, they all might get touches. They're all primarily running backs. I think Jalen Samuel might be able to do some other things, but for the most part, it's just, I don't know. I want to see him be a workhorse so bad. That's the thing about fantasy is if 30 guys were workhorses, we would be happy.
That's true.
But it never works out that way. And
for me, we've seen him do it, though. It's not like we've never seen it, you know?
Yeah.
There's guys that we like a lot that we'd say, damn, I wish that guy was a workhorse, but we've never seen it before. We have the proof that he's capable. So,
yeah.
And he's playing for a contract. I know that's
he's not that old,
but we'll see. I just think, and the thing is for me, I think last year, once Ben went down, they were like, we got to lean on James Conner now. And they just leaned on him too much and he just got injured, you know? So we'll see.
I just want to see the touches there, because even when he was healthy last year at the beginning of the season, it wasn't 20, 30 touches a game like you want out of a workhorse. It was 15, it was 13, and I want to see 20. And if I see 20, man, you're absolutely right. I think he has top 10 capabilities.
I'm gonna bring up one quick question for these rankings, and it goes to you, Jacob. You have Raheem ahead of Todd, Melvin, and Le'Veon.
Yeah.
Why?
Bro, look, and I'm not even that high on Raheem, to be honest, but I'm not touching Gurley. I'm not touching Bell. I'm not touching Gordon. I haven't drafted them in any of my leagues.
Yeah.
I don't feel good about any of those guys, to be honest. I just don't. Look, I love Todd Gurley as a player. When he was healthy, man, or when he was on the Rams, he was just amazing. He was the best thing in fantasy, but I just don't think he's going to stay healthy. I hear bad things about his knees still. And I don't know, man. I think these guys are washed up.
Oh, that's tough. That's a lot to say, washed up. And Todd Gurley's not that old. It's injuries.
I know. Well, and it's not.
Todd Gurley's
I'm being a little bit harsh, but the best way to explain it for me, and Le'Veon Bell, Melvin Gordon, I think are washed up. Todd Gurley's just injured, and his eliteness was taken away way too soon by injuries, and that just happens. And that's just how I feel.
Yeah.
You know, Todd Gurley's like the oldest 26-year-old I've ever seen, but I think he can definitely bounce back. I think they all sit in different positions. Gurley with the injury, Le'Veon just on one of the worst teams I've ever seen, and they don't know how to use him. And then Melvin Gordon, I have to say, has the highest upside because we know what he can do. The holdout, he held out last year, right? And now he's coming back for a full year. So I have high hopes for them, but mostly Melvin, I think.
So my argument against that, Justin, is that at least with Le'Veon and Todd Gurley, we know they're the workhorses. Where with Melvin, Phillip Lindsay is a 1,000-yard back 2 years in a row. So how much are they going to rely on him? I've heard out of the Broncos camp, they're saying it's 1A, 1B. There is no starter. So I don't know how true that is. I don't know what we're going to end up seeing, but yeah. I mean, and more to Jacob's point with Raheem Mostert, he's one of those guys, dude, that week 1 through 10, I like him as a flex. And I think 10 through the end of the season, he's going to solidify himself as a solid RB2 because the Niners are going to go straight up committee. And then as the season progresses, he's going to end up being the guy.
Yeah, I have Mostert that high because the Niners are going to run a lot. And whether or not, we know it's going to be a committee, but in that committee, there's a top guy, and he's the top guy. And for me, he's going to have a lot of touchdowns. I think he's going to have at least 10 rushing touchdowns and maybe even 2 receiving touchdowns. So the touchdown potential for me raises him above those guys.
Yeah.
So explain this then. If Melvin, Todd, Le'Veon are all washed up, why is David Johnson not washed up and higher in your rankings? That if you saw him last year, I don't know. He looks like Phillip Rivers.
So for me, look, honestly, I think some crazy weird shit happened with David Johnson because I never seen anything like that. Where look at his first 5 games last year, he was actually playing really well. Look at his fantasy stats. He was playing really well. I think he was a top 10 running back at the first 5 games. And then he got injured. He missed a couple games. Chase Edmonds came in. He came back and it was just so weird. I never seen anything like that where he wasn't injured to the point where he couldn't play, but he that we knew of, right?
Yeah.
And he just disappeared. Something fishy was going on there. I think it was an anomaly. And I think he's working hard. And I just think that backfield, they've never look, this offense since Deshaun Washington's been there has been one of those elite offenses. And I mean, I know Hopkins is gone, but they never had the workhorse running back. And if you look at Carlos Hyde, he had 1,000 yards rushing last year. And then, they're going to pass it too. And he can catch passes. So I'm just a believer in David Johnson. I'm rooting for him to come back.
Yeah. That's my guy, man.
I believe that. I like that. I just want to know why you put it like that. But those 4 guys are ones I want to watch closely this year.
Hey, I hate to bring up another fantasy guy, but you and I both love Matthew Berry. And what he talks about is the Texans traded DeAndre Hopkins, a top 5 receiver and probably a top 2 actual receiver in the NFL, for David Johnson in a pick.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Yeah. They have no choice but to make it work. At least the coach. If the coach, if David Johnson doesn't work out, that's an awful move. You traded DeAndre Hopkins, an elite premier
and not even receiver. To save money. He's making a lot of money too.
That's the point. It's dude, you at least have to save money and get the pick, but you didn't. You took on David Johnson, who's making, I think, just as much as Hopkins was scheduled to make this year, or very close to it. And I know Hopkins just signed an extension, I think, for 2 years, right? But
so much money in those last 2 years.
It's crazy. But anyways, I think it's going to work out. It's just they have too much running on it, man. He has to work out. I think even if he's banged up, it's not going to be a situation like, hey, Chase Edmonds is there waiting in the wings, or hey, we can go out and get a Kenyon Drake. It is on him, and they're going to make it work.
Hey, they could always sign Devontae Freeman if he doesn't. No, I don't know what's up with that. No, I think Devontae Freeman's being greedy. He's like, find a way to pay me $4 million, and I'm not coming to your team, when the teams don't even have enough cap space to sign him or something like that.
And he hasn't been that good in 3 years.
Exactly.
So.
And he, if Leonard Fournette can't get $4 million, Devontae Freeman's not getting $4 million.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's head on to the wide receivers here. So we have we just have we have the consensus wide receiver ranking. So we have number 1, Michael Thomas, Julio Jones, Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyreek Hill, Kenny Galladay, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, DJ Moore, and Amari Cooper. Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Yep. And we got some studs in the top 11 through 20 as well. But Justin, I'll go to you first because, we made this list. So I want to hear your thoughts. What's crazy in our top 10 to you?
Not that I disagree, but it's crazy to me how high DJ Moore has jumped up on draft boards and prospects. He to make it in the top 10, not saying that he can't do it. That's the craziest thing to me. But the wide receiver range is pretty difficult after you get rid of the top guys. And I see you guys have Hill at 5, and I could easily take Hill at 2 and feel comfortable about that. But MT, Julio, Adams, Hopkins, Hill, it's a beautiful top 5 to work with. It gets more dicey after that too. But you have Godwin under Mike Evans when Godwin, I think, finished as wide receiver 2 last year. That's what I want to know. I don't know why you would do that. I'm just curious on that.
Interesting. So I agree with you, Justin. 2 through 5 on our consensus list, you could go any of those guys in that order, and I feel pretty comfortable with it. And I'm glad to see Kenny Galladay at number 6. I'm a big fan of this guy, and I see Gabe has him at number 4, which I believe is Gabe's hot take on the wide receiver rankings list. But for me, and I think we talked about this on last episode because we were doing the NFC South, but you said we have Evans higher than Godwin, Justin, and that was shocking to you. And I believe on my list I have that as well. Let me see here. Yeah, I have him right above him. So I talked about this. So I think it's likely that Chris Godwin's going to finish above Mike Evans because that's the type of receiver that Tom Brady's used to working with, a slot receiver. But also, I just think Evans is too big of a guy. He's a huge monster, and I just think Brady's going to get him the ball, man. I think in a different kind of way, I don't think Gronk is going to be Brady's Gronk this year. I think Evans is going to be Brady's Gronk this year in a different kind of way because he's going to be running, real wide receiver routes and things like that. And I think when they're in the end zone, he's going to throw to Evans like he used to throw to Gronk. So I just think Evans is going to have more touchdowns. Godwin's going to have more catches, and it's just going to even each other out. They're going to be close, and Evans is going to beat him out a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, you had Evans at 7 and Godwin at 8, so it wasn't that crazy.
Exactly, yeah.
For me,
it looks like it was Gabe's rankings that threw it off.
Yeah, I had Godwin at 6 and Evans at 9. And, we talked about this on the last podcast, and I went back and looked at a stat, Jacob, which is a pretty interesting stat. So it's called basically yards before catch per reception. So how far the player was when they caught the ball, right? And Godwin on average was 8.8 yards. He caught the ball that far out, and he had 577 yards after the catch. Mike Evans, on average, was 13.4 yards, which is huge. That's a big difference. And he only had 256 yards after the catch. So Godwin pretty much doubled him up. And for that reason, I love Godwin way more because he's going to be Edelman. And, Gronkowski and Evans might be Gronkowski, but let's go back a few years. Gronkowski never outplayed Edelman in fantasy. That never happened. So while I love both of them this year, and I think that they both are going to be great, just like they were last year, Godwin, it was hard to keep him out of my top 5, but those top 5 are just too good.
Yeah, and to be honest, as much logic goes into these rankings and these decisions, I love my big receivers. I love my Calvin Johnson. I'm always looking for the next Calvin Johnson type guy. That's why I draft 6'3", 6'4" rookies, and I'm looking for that next big, huge guy. So, that's why I like Mike Evans a little bit more. So a little bit of, feeling goes into it as well.
Yeah. So the biggest discrepancy here, guys, you got to put it off right off the bat. So Amari Cooper would not have finished in our top 10 if it wasn't for Gabe's crazy hot take, which was Adam Thielen at number 27.
Oh my God. Yep. That's because honestly, I think obviously Amari Cooper is capable of finishing in the top 10. If he really is the number 1 wide receiver on that offense, he's very capable of that. And if he stays healthy, but Thielen at 27, I can't disagree more.
And Jacob, you weren't on the podcast last time. It was me, Gabe, DeMont, and Justin. And we talked.
I listened though, because I edited it, and everyone was dissing on Thielen except you.
Yeah, and
Justin.
I'm curious, Justin. Let me just rattle off some guys real quick. I know that this is kind of Gabe's segment that he loves to do every episode, so I'm going to keep the thing alive. Are you taking Calvin Ridley or Adam Thielen?
I would take Calvin Ridley over Thielen.
Oh,
wow.
Goodness.
Okay. How about Juju?
I would take Juju, assuming Ben stays healthy. Yeah, Juju all day.
And last one, Allen Robinson or Adam Thielen?
Easily Allen Robinson.
See, so Jacob, maybe we're crazy, man. Maybe we just like Adam Thielen and we believe without Diggs that they got to throw to somebody. And, I think.
Listen, Thielen is nice, but you have a lot of guys that are coming up in better situations. And we can agree that Diggs leaving kind of lowers Thielen's value because all of a sudden he becomes the primetime focal spot every time when they take the field.
I disagree. I think it heightens it, to be honest. And they have some nice pieces there. I think I forget who the third guy is, but they have Justin Jefferson, who I think is going to show off a lot of skill early, and teams are going to be like, okay, we got to keep an eye on this guy. And look, remember that year? Was it 3 years ago when Thielen was just lighting the world on fire? He was the number one wide receiver in
nowhere
in fantasy. And look, I think he's capable of that. I'm not saying he's going to be the number one, but he's capable of a top 8, top 7 finish. And I think Diggs gone is maybe better for that locker room and team overall, but also better for Thielen, to be honest. I know, look, I don't think Thielen is this DeAndre Hopkins or Julio Jones type guy where the defense is going to plan their whole entire game script on defending that guy. They're not like, we got to stop Adam Thielen. So I still don't think they're focusing on him that much. And I'm hearing like we have sources and stuff, but I hear from podcasts, things like that Adam Thielen's going to play in the slot and the outside. And depending on the play, he's going to be doing both. Look, maybe I'm biased because I got him in the 4th round this year and I feel really good about that. But I think Adam Thielen's going to eat this year.
Yeah. Let me tell you. Go ahead, Joey. Go ahead.
So one thing that I mentioned earlier about the 49ers, right, about how I think that they will become a little bit more pass heavy this year just because that was kind of a Achilles heel for them last year. And I think that same thing can be said for the Minnesota Vikings. It is a passers league. It is Patrick Mahomes' league, and they're lighting the world on fire. And I don't think you can go out there next year and hand the ball off 40 times to Madison and Dalvin Cook and let them stack 8 in the box and beat teams left and right. I don't think so. I think they paid Kirk Cousins $84 million so that he could finally go out and do something. And he's shown on the Redskins that he was a very capable fantasy quarterback. He had multiple years where he was top 10 or so. So with Thielen, and I think the guy that you were talking about, Jacob, is Quisby Johnson or something like that.
Busy Johnson.
Yeah. And him, Jefferson, Cook is a very capable pass catcher. I think Madison can catch some ball. Irv Smith Jr.
Sleeper tight end right there, to be honest.
True.
I think Rudolph is still in the league, isn't he?
So he's the best blocker we got.
So I don't know, man. I'm Jacob that Thielen and Diggs separating was good for both of them.
I agree.
Let me explain. As a Viking fan, I watch a lot of their games. Obviously, you said that just because Diggs is gone does not mean that they're going to game plan against him. No, I don't think they're going to game plan against them, but the top cornerback is not going to line up against Diggs anymore. They're going to line up against Thielen. It's going to be harder for him to run those routes. And to counter Joseph's point, we are going to run down the middle every single time. That's just what we do. Cousins, I wish he could ball out and throw like he did in the Redskins, but our offense runs differently. We have Dalvin for a reason, and as long as he's healthy, we don't want to change that. I do hope BC shows a little bit more than what we've seen because we gave him opportunities. He just never showed. And we did sign Tajay Sharp, so that's a nice addition, but I don't know how it's going to play into our scheme. But I'm not saying Thielen's bad. I'm just saying you have up-and-comers like DK Metcalf, Juju's getting back healthy with Ben Roethlisberger, Cortland Sutton's coming up. And you're going to tell me Thielen head and shoulders above those guys? It's not that clear for me. You can take those chances and get Calvin Ridley much more offensive weapons in Atlanta in a fantasy league than we're going to have in Minnesota. So Thielen drops for me. Not that it's a bad pick, but I'd rather go with the upside of all those other guys in most cases. Terry McLaurin, you know what I mean? these guys are beasts. Sharp, they're beasts. Why would I take Thielen? I know what I'm gonna get.
All right,
So
Justin.
Jacob, maybe we're crazy, man.
Why?
Maybe
about Thielen?
Maybe Gabe is right with the number 27, and maybe Justin's got a point here. But
I really hope not. I really hope not. So, Justin, I have a prediction. I think by week 4, people are going to be talking about Justin Jefferson, wishing they drafted him. He's going to be a solid flex play. Tell me why I'm right or wrong.
I'll say why I hope you're right. I mean, we drafted him for a reason. We lost Diggs. We wanted that nice, quick outside guy in Justin Jefferson. We want to get that bad taste because the last receiver we picked was Laquan Treadwell, and we know how that turned out. So I hope he does show up. I hope he's that lightning quick guy that we can have counter and give Thielen those cross routes that he loves. But I don't have faith in many rookie wide receivers, especially on a run-heavy team. So I would say if you have a deep league and you want to have a secret stash, you can't go wrong with that. But if you don't have him on your roster, but you want to keep an eye on him, that's where I sit with him.
Interesting. I may or may not have him in a dynasty league, and I just wanted a Vikings fan perspective. So, Joe, I noticed another discrepancy. I don't know if you were going to bring this one up, but I have Tyler Boyd significantly higher than both of you guys. I have him at 22. And is that where I have him? Let me see here. Yeah, 22. Yeah, you have him at 33, and Gabe has him at 37. So look, I think Tyler Boyd is going to be the number 1 option on the Cincinnati Bengals, even if AJ Green plays all 16 games. I really do. I think Joe Burrow is going to light it up this year. I think that offense. Look, we don't expect them to be up in games or be tied in games a lot. They're going to be down in games a lot, most likely. I think Joe Burrow is going to light it up. Tyler Boyd gets a lot of targets, has a lot of catches. I just think – I'm not saying he's going to be a top 15 wide receiver. I have him at 22, but I think my ranking is justified in my eyes, at least. And I think people are sleeping on Tyler Boyd. I think he's the most – underrated fantasy wide receiver going into the year.
Yeah. I mean, listen, he's done it and he's been a really good player, but they just drafted Higgins. They're bringing back AJ Green. Mixon is expected to be a big part of that offense in both the pass game and running the ball. And I'm just not sure that, listen, it was hard for me, man, because I like Boyd too, but I started looking at the guys above him. First of all, Tyler Boyd, Marvin Jones Jr. I'm probably taking Tyler Boyd, even though I have Marvin Jones ranked a slot ahead of him. Marvin Jones is one of those guys I never draft, but 5 games out of the year, he's doing something. So when I was doing my rankings, it was kind of like at the end of the season, who's going to have more points? And while I think Tyler Boyd is going to be more consistent throughout the year, Marvin Jones tends to have those games where he just wins you weeks. He gets 40 points somehow.
Exactly, yeah.
And I hate it, but I had to rank him accordingly, even though I would take Tyler Boyd myself over him. But then going up, T.Y. Hilton, he's primed for a bounce back with Phillip Rivers and a really good offensive line. Julian Edelman, I don't think he's going anywhere. Michael Gallup, he's in a great offense too, a better offense than the Bengals. Deebo Samuel, that's my guy. Come on, man. Wide receiver number 1 on the Niners. Landry, Sutton, Beckham. I couldn't get him above these guys. It's not that I don't like him. I think it's more of a testament to how deep wide receivers are. I went through my list of 40 and I was like, damn, I would be probably happy to start almost any single one of these guys. At least top 35.
There were guys we left off. Like I had to leave Justin Jefferson off because I forgot somebody and I had to push him out. I had Justin Jefferson at number 40. I really did. And I was like, I almost wanted to kick Christian Kirk off my list, but I wasn't going to change my thoughts on them just because of that. So any last thoughts on the wide receivers? Anything else that stands out?
Yeah, 2 things I noticed. One, on the Tyler Boyd, I don't care if AJ Green comes back. Boyd is a PPR stud. This guy is a beast, and he only is going to get better with that improving offense. 2, the most disgusting, atrocious, absurd, disrespectful thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm not even going to go to Gabe. I'll get to Gabe, but AJ Brown, you have him at 14, Jacob, and then Joey has him at 22 with guys like DK Metcalf ahead of him. And then Gabe, I don't know if he knows who he is. This boy's at 34. And I'm thinking,
Okay, honestly, bro,
listen,
I didn't even see their rankings. I'm with you, Justin. I look, 14 is respectable, but I'm with you. I didn't know they had him this low. That's disrespectful.
Dude, this guy, if you watch the Titans as they hit that hot streak, you talk Tannehill, you talk Henry, I don't care. It was this man, big game. You talk about big boy receivers who's going to light up a field. You think Ridley's going to pop off? You think Galladay's going to pop off? Tell me you'd be surprised if AJ Brown hits top 10 wide receiver.
People are saying Terrell Owens 2.0.
Dude,
that's a good comparison.
Brown. The problem is Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry, and they're not going to throw that much, man. It's like, look at our quarterback rankings. Russell Wilson was top 4. Tannehill was like number 23 or 4 or something like that. He didn't even crack the top 20.
That's disrespectful too.
I mean, you say that, and I like Tannehill. I just need to see more than 8 games from him. I'm a believer. I just want to see more than 8 games.
So that's a good point. You're leaning on the against because we had a small sample size. I'm saying let's think bigger and above because we're going to get a full year. We have Tannehill leading off without, who was it, Mariota screwing it up at the beginning of the year. It's going to be a beautiful year. And that guy if there's one player that does not need volume to make an impact, it's AJ Brown. He doesn't need those 15 catches.
Well, didn't he have games like where it'd be like 4 catches for like 120 yards and a touchdown?
And 2 touchdowns. Yeah.
No, I mean, I read stuff that like he's very good at beating guys, like beating cornerbacks and then yards after the catch. So,
dude, that team between him and Derrick Henry alone, just those 2 guys, probably had more. How many times did you look down at your phone and it would drive me nuts? And you were a Derrick Henry owner, and I would look and it would be like Derrick Henry, 1 carry, 82 yards, touchdown, and I'd be like, what?
Like at the beginning of the game and
every time. AJ Brown, 43 yards, touchdown. Oh my God, great. Listen, I don't think it was disrespectful to put Brown at 22 just because the guys ahead of him are all a little bit more proven. I think AJ Brown has easily top 15 potential, but I wasn't ready to rank him there.
34 is disrespectful, though.
That is disrespectful. Behind Jamison Crowder, come on, Gabe. I wish you were here to defend that.
Oh my God.
We're gonna have to do a segment next podcast, like 5 minutes. Gabe, defend these rankings. What do we got? We got a couple of them. Remember them, Joe. Write them down. We're gonna talk to him about them.
Real quick.
Yeah, let's do tight end real quick. We won't spend too much time on this. So our top 10, and everybody's top 10 is usually similar with tight end, but let's get to it. So our top 10 is Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Mark Andrews, Zach Ertz, Darren Waller, Tyler Higbee, Evan Ingram, Hayden Hurst, Mike Gesicki, and Austin Hooper, with Gronk just hanging around there at the number 11 spot. I'm happy to see Mike Gesicki on there. I obviously have him the highest. And Joe, I guess this is just mine and your rankings.
Yeah, we didn't get rankings from Gabe.
Yeah, so I'm guessing Gesicki probably wouldn't have made the top 10 if Gabe did his. But let's just deal with what we got here. And that's probably my biggest thing where someone would look at this and be like, whoa, you have Gesicki at number 7. And I know he's getting a lot of buzz, but he had, I think it was 5 touchdowns in his last 6 games to end the season. I just think he's one of those guys who's on the rise, and I don't know if like it's possible to have 5 or 6 just elite tight ends, like where you could take, any of those guys as the number 1. But I think we're possibly heading into that direction in the near future, where there's 6 guys that are just elite, and where we usually have 2 or 3, right? And I think Mike Gesicki has the build and just the offense and the talent to be one of those guys. So Joe, what do you want to talk about on your rankings? Because my guy was Mike Gesicki, and also, is there anything else that stands out about this list?
So nothing much that really stand out. I mean, I had Font, whatever you call him, at number 10, and you had him at 15. I don't think that's huge because we kind of talk about it after you get past the top 10 tight ends.
Oh yeah,
you kind of want to grab 2 of those guys and just hope that one of them works out, right? But I like him. I've been hearing that he's going to be lining up in all types of positions. They're playing him out wide. They're playing him in the slot. They're putting him as a tight end. So he's going to be involved heavily in that offense. I think Locke is going to rely on him a lot. The big guy I want to talk about, and I mentioned him on the podcast before as my breakout star for tight end, is Higbee. And Higbee is my Gesicki. I did 5 drafts. I got him in the first 3. I could not get him in the last 2 just because guys took him before me. Justin was texting me, who should I grab at tight end? My pick's coming up next. I'm like, dude, Evan Ingram, take him. Trying to keep Higbee on the board. So I love him.
Don't ask Joe for advice during the draft that he's in, Justin. You can't trust him.
You don't know. He didn't finish the end of the story. Tell him what happened after that.
Justin says, how about Higbee? I say, no. You want to go with Ingram, or I think I put out a couple other guys, Hurst and Hooper and whatnot. But listen, Higbee is. I just love that situation in I like to say St. Louis, in LA this year. It's so much more clear, man. Last year was Cooks, it was Woods, it was Kupp, it was Everett, it was Higbee. There was a lot of dudes, and this year it feels like it's going to be better not only as a football team because they have a kind of a clear hierarchy, but as a fantasy player because you've got Higbee, you've got Kupp, you've got Woods, and then the running back is a little bit sketchy. But we know those 3 guys are the top pass catchers. And I think that offense with Goff that loves to throw the ball, the Rams that love to throw the ball, he's going to support all 3 of those guys as clear-cut studs. So I think Higbee, I have him ranked as 6. I almost put him ahead of Zach Ertz at 5. And I wanted to even maybe get ballsy and go number 4 with him because I think he's got the kind of return that could get you a top 5 tight end.
Yeah, man. If you look at the way he finished last year, it's crazy. I think he was like top 10 fantasy players to finish the year, not just tight ends. It was insane. Yeah. So, Justin, what did we get wrong on this tight end list?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm wrong, but what looks really weird to me is the decline of Hunter Henry. I don't know why he's fallen. He was a beast when he came back. He was that set it and forget it tight end. And then you're finding him drop into people like Evan Ingram, who's just made of glass. It doesn't make any sense to me. I can see, I don't know if this is the craziest thing, but the Kelsey Kittle debate isn't a debate anymore to me. I'm going Kittle 1A every single time now. And no disrespect to Kelsey, but I think Kittle separated himself. But I just want to throw
Justin, this is your podcast, man.
This is part of the Jimmy G and Niners upgrade. I mean, this man is different. I love Kelsey's finesse, but Kittle is going to get you that extra 10 yards while people try to tackle him. That's going to make up over the year. That's a good point.
I was looking at something where Kittle, like, the guy runs towards the guy and like looks for the contact because he wants to knock him over and keep running rather than let the guy catch him from behind.
Yeah. Well, as a football player, we both agree. All 3 of us agree. Kittle is the better player.
Oh yeah, and what was he ranked? Number 7 or something? Number 7 in the top 100 list. It's
crazy. He's a top 10 football player, but as a fantasy player, he's just, if he was in the Chiefs offense, you'd be talking about him as a first round pick potentially. But he's not. He's in the Niners offense, and it is what it is. And
that's the thing to me. That's the difference maker. He has Patrick Mahomes throwing to him. That's my difference maker.
Yeah.
I just want to throw it out there. I'm taking Kittle this year over Kelsey, but either or is a great pick.
Yeah. But I still agree with you, Justin.
Hunter Henry, you kind of mentioned him. Hunter Henry.
Yeah.
I know Ingram has been beat up, but I think and I'm sorry, I have a touch screen here. I didn't mean to be blocking my camera. When they're both healthy, Ingram is the better player. They both have injury concerns. And the biggest thing about me that kind of dropped Hunter Henry down on my list is not only is he injured, but now he lost Phillip Rivers, who loves his tight ends. I mean, Antonio Gates, look at what he did with him. I don't trust Tyrod Taylor to really have any of those guys as more than, they're all going to take a step back. So Hunter Henry is still valuable. I'd still love to have him paired with Hayden Hurst at my tight end spot. But I don't trust him as much as I do Evan Ingram, if Evan Ingram is healthy.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, I had Hunter Henry at 11, which I wanted to get him into my top 10, but I just think Hooper, I think people are undervaluing Hooper. I think Hayden Hurst is now in the Austin Hooper role in Atlanta. So it's just tough, man. Part of it is tight end is the most stacked it's ever been, honestly, in fantasy. I mean, since I've been playing, I won't say I don't know crap about before that, but
I think it has promising potential. That's for sure. Much different than the years before.
So it's part of that. Like if it was still a wasteland at tight end, Hunter Henry would be the number 6 guy. But there's a lot more talent now.
Yeah, and also there's guys like Jonnu Smith, Chris Herndon, T.J. Hawkinson, Blake Jarwin, that I think maybe one or two of those guys make themselves kind of fantasy viable. But my big sleeper is Jack Doyle. Jack Doyle is a sleeper.
Bro, I agree with you because he had monster years with Andrew Luck, and now he has Phillip Rivers throwing to him. If Jack Doyle stays healthy, he could be a top 10, top 8 tight end.
Top 8, I think. If he's healthy, I think he has top 8 potential. He's
a PPR monster. I remember one year with Andrew Luck, man. And even without Andrew Luck, he was catching so many balls, man. He's a sleeper.
I mean, I'll do one up, and you guys, I don't want to call it disrespect because we don't have a lot of knowledge on it, but for all the past talks we've had, Blake Jarwin fall into the bottom of the list makes no. I mean, if we believe in that offense, and we saw what Witten can do, and he just takes over that lead as the full-time, clear-cut tight end of that Dallas Cowboy team, I don't see Jared Cook can finish with those big explosive hits, but Chris Herndon, what has he done? Goddard's tight end 2. I'd rather just take Dallas's tight end 1 in that system than some of those guys.
For me, I don't know enough about Blake Jarwin. He kind of came out of nowhere to me. Like everybody started talking about him, and I was like, "Did we see this guy play last year?" I didn't really remember him that well. Yeah. So like, I just don't like. I never watched him. Like I don't remember watching him play, so I don't really know much about him. But the reason that all those reasons that you mentioned, Justin, are the reason why he even made my list at number 20.
That's fair.
I think for me, I had him actually at 17. I had him ahead of Chris Herndon, Jonnu Smith, T.J. Hawkinson. I like him. I think kind of what you mentioned, it is a dynamic offense, but he's probably 5th on the list, right? At best, would you say behind Zeke, CeeDee, Gallup, Cooper? He's going to be 5th in targets on that team. And yeah, Dak is amazing. Yeah, as a fantasy player. And yeah, the Cowboys are going to put up a lot of points, but I'm not sure that we've seen many teams, if any teams, support 5 guys. That's a tall task. Even in the Rams' greatest year, it was 4. And even in the Chiefs' great year, it was maybe 3 or 4. So I just don't know that I can see a team support 5 fantasy guys. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, at tight end, you're trying to get the edge over people, so maybe he does enough. He gets enough touchdowns or, enough targets to be a decent tight end play. But all right, well, that's going to – Justin, do you have any more thoughts or we're good?
No. I mean, all I want to say is tight end past those top 6, you're looking for those tight end, those touchdown or bust cut type of games, and I like Jarwin for the touchdown potential, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he has like 7-8 touchdowns, which would be pretty good. That's not bad. But yes, Justin is our master predictor. He has Jimmy Garoppolo at number 12 for quarterbacks and George Kittle as the best tight end in fantasy. I want to agree with him, but thank you, Justin, for pushing those good thoughts towards our Niners. That's going to do it for this episode of First Round Fantasy. That was fun talking our rankings. I love doing that. I don't know. Are we going to do weekly rankings? That might be a little too daunting. I don't know, but maybe we'll do just top 10 lists going into the week or something like that. I don't know. We'll see.
Some discrepancies that we have from everybody.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's a good point, because we could probably look at Fantasy Pros or something, because they do a consensus of everybody basically. But all right, well, thank you for joining us this week. Let us know your rankings in the comment section, or what you think about our rankings. Why are we crazy? Tell us. We'd love to hear your thoughts. I am Jacob, that is Joseph, and that is Justin. Thank you guys for joining me. We will see you all on the next episode.